So hi, thank you so much for taking the time to come here. My name is Louis, and this is Freelance Editing and You, editing for YouTube and game trailers. So let's get started. So who is this guy? So I'm Louis Illingworth. I am a freelance editor, as I said, and I also I work with YouTube people. I work with other different kinds of brands, but I also cut game trailers. That's something I've been started doing recently. I am from New York, but not the part of New York that usually makes people go, ooh. It's the part that makes people go, huh. So upstate. And I went to SCAT, and I have a BFA in interactive design and game development. And a little bit after that, so I came out of college and I started doing off jobs here and there for graphic design and such. And then eventually I kind of took the plunge and I started doing video editing for myself. Like I was kind of doing it on and off, but then eventually I was able to work with Shane from DidYouKnowGaming. And I had this wonderful opportunity with him, and then that opened like a bunch of other doors, such as all these other brands that I've worked with. There's DidYouKnowGaming, there's GameChops, who is here. I've worked with the channel Boundary Break, and not on the main Boundary Break episodes, but like other stuff. I work with Red Bull. I've worked with McMuscles, who's producing also The Takeover, which is also a game that I cut a trailer for. I worked for A Hat in Time, Frederator, and probably I'm forgetting others, but like those are like the main highlights of my career. So what are some things that we're going to cover today? I'm going to cover necessary tools that you will need, which to do video editing, which usually comes to hardware, software, any other ways to get your name out. We're going to cover good practices to cover both your freelance, like both your video editing techniques and also any kind of business side of it. We're going to cover a bit of networking, how to like help you get your name out there. We're going to cover the fun part, which is financing your business, everyone's favorite. And then after that, we'll have a short Q&A, and then at the very end, I'll give out some resources for everyone that they can follow. So some of the necessary tools for the job. I will say also at the start, I recognize that 100% this is something that does require a decent chunk of financial investment, so I will try to keep things as affordable as I can. You definitely need a PC, preferably like kind of higher end. You can get away with a laptop actually. This laptop over here cost me about $1,000, and I do like a lot of my off editing in it. Definitely high-speed internet, because you're going to be working with a lot of sending videos to clients and for review purposes. I would you would definitely want like a PC monitor, but I would recommend at least a 24-inch monitor, because when you're cutting in Premiere, you're gonna need specifically like a screen to just monitor what your cuts are, another one for your timeline. I work with one big 27-inch monitor, which gets the job done perfectly fine. But if you can preferably get like maybe two smaller monitors, that would also absolutely help. You don't even need to get like speakers, because usually people like speakers, and you can get them. They're definitely useful to get monitor speakers. But if you can just get like a good pair of studio quality headphones, I highly recommend those. I highly recommend the ATH M40X, which are just a pair that they're about like $70, and they're like the best pair of headphones that I've ever bought in my life. Like as soon as they break down, if they ever break, I'm just going to buy another pair immediately. You will also want to get a mic, not only for any kind of calls that you make with clients, but also sometimes you'll do what's called scratch voice. And what that basically means is sometimes you get a script, but the voiceover won't be ready. So you want to record yourself doing like any kind of reads for like voiceover for a trailer, or voiceover, for example. Sometimes when I did DidYouKnowGaming, so I use that to like record the script when the voiceover is not ready, so I have something to work off of. Basically, like it helps to be more efficient with your work. I also highly recommend getting a keyboard with a number pad, because you can map a lot of your shortcuts from Premiere, and it's like a humongous lifesaver. And obviously a mouse. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just get a mouse. Especially if you're working on a laptop, please get a mouse. Don't use a trackpad. This is covering more like the software part of things. Like I said before, like software can be like a humongous financial investment, but also I'm going to try to cover more free software. So obviously the biggest one is Adobe Premiere, which right now the most accessible way to get it is a monthly subscription, which if you get if you just get Premiere, it can run you for about $22 a month. If you get the whole Adobe suite, which includes Photoshop, Audition, and Illustrator, and like 22 other pieces of software that you're not really going to use, it's going to be about like $58 a month, which is definitely more money, but like there's other ways. So Sony Vegas is also a really good one, and if you just want to do like a flat, just like a flat rate, just pay one thing and don't have to pay monthly, that also helps. I've never used Sony Vegas, but I know people that absolutely swear by it. Final Cut Pro is definitely more like a Mac thing, so again, I don't know about that one. And recently, like DaVinci Resolve has been touted a lot for like more simpler editings, and it's absolutely and completely free. It's an open source piece of software. For game capture, if you're definitely going to be doing game trailers, you're going to want to capture your own footage. If you're capturing for consoles, try to get a hold at least of the Elgato HD60. They can run you between 120 to 180, depending on which one you're getting. I got a refurbished one from Amazon for about $90, and it was terrific. If you're doing PC, like try to get Shadowplay comes absolutely free if you have an NVIDIA card installed, and then Bandicam I think is about $60. And then the easiest one you can probably get a hold of is OBS, which a lot of people use for streaming, but you can also set up for footage capture. When you're gonna be doing audio editing, usually you're gonna be cutting the audio inside of Premiere, but I like to use Audacity for any kind of audio processing, to be using like tube modeling compressors and dynamic processing. But also like Audacity is also a tool that's absolutely free, and like pretty much everyone on YouTube uses, and it's with good reason. It's such a versatile piece of audio editing. And then finally, like for like image editing, again, there's Photoshop, but that comes with a monthly subscription. But I know people also use a lot of GIMP, which is basically the exact same thing as Photoshop, but it's absolutely free. I haven't used GIMP. I've heard from people it's a little bit more complicated. But it's definitely an option to have. So now we're going to move on to a little bit of some good practices and things to keep in mind while you're editing. So definitely the biggest thing that you want to know is you're definitely going to want to know what you are editing. So this is something that when you start talking to a client, you definitely want to preferably try not to just talk to them over email, like try to schedule a phone call or just get them on Discord to just like any kind of chat system, just to be able to talk to them, because it's easier than just sending an email and then waiting for a day, and then that's just wasted time. So you want to talk to them, are you doing a video essay? Are you doing a game trailer? Are you doing a feature trailer? Which the difference between the two is a feature trailer is something you would see. For example, definitely whenever a Rockstar game comes out, there's usually what they call a feature trailer, which is a trailer you see there's a voiceover and they go, "This is Red Dead Redemption 2, the new high western game. Come over here and check out the 200,000 horses that we have, and you can run off a cliff." Things like that. There's not a story being told in the trailer. You're just getting features being told to you, and that's super important to be able to know the difference. Have a naming convention, please. I don't want to see that in my house. It not only does it it just makes your work look more professional, but later down the line, it's going to help you to find things easier. Even if it's a weird naming convention that maybe you and other people can understand, just have one. It's just going to save you so much time down the line. You're also going to want to develop a pipeline. So basically, what this means is you're going to want to think about from the very start of your work to the very end, which means how are you going to go about contacting someone, and then you do research about the project. So for example, if you're trying to cut a game trailer, try to look up the company, what they do, what kind of games they do, talk to the people that you're doing, try to ask them what's your game like, what's the game feel for it, like what kind of audience are you targeting? Because that stuff like helps you a lot. So for example, if somebody tells you, oh, this is a game for kids, it's like, try not to say the F word on it or like have it on your titles. Start doing planning, which is like trying to write down an outline for your videos. So if it's a game trailer, like try to have a structure to it, which we'll cover up in a minute. That's when you want to start doing capture, because then you actually have an idea of what you want to do. What I usually do is when I did A Hat in Time, I captured first I captured an entire playthrough of myself playing the game, and then to have an idea, and then I basically do the exact same thing like other 5 times to be able to get different takes, different different shots, different timings, and then I talk to my client and ask them, okay, so what do you want to highlight? So they're like, okay, so if we're doing Yakuza Metro, we want to highlight the cats, we want to highlight the stands, we want to highlight that kind of thing. So then I ask them, usually they give me a development build. Always try to get a development build if you can, because then that's the stuff that'll allow you to input any kind of console commands that'll let you, freeform the camera. It'll allow you to basically get a lot of like very cinematic, beautiful shots, and that's absolutely basically, how games have like a photo mode nowadays. Imagine that, but like 10 times more freeform. Then you want to work on your edit, and that's also when you want to keep in mind your naming conventions, your structuring for like what I like to do. For example, is I have a project folder for like any DidYouKnowGaming I do. I have a project folder where I have my Premiere files, and then I have another one I have a folder for images, I have a folder for any of my audio, I have a folder for footage, which is any kind of live action footage, so like commercials, press conferences, things like that. And then I have another folder that's explicitly gameplay, any kind of gameplay. You also definitely wanna, very important, you absolutely wanna save in increments. So anytime you make any kind of big directorial decision, if you're going on an absolutely different style suddenly for your video, you're gonna want to save a separate instance of your document, so that then if that new direction doesn't work out, you can go very easily go back to the one you have, and so on and so forth. And you want to save often. Premiere has an autosave feature, absolutely. Please turn that on. I cannot tell you the amount of times that Premiere crashed and I am very tight on the deadline, and then I almost started crying because I thought I lost my work. But I was saving in increments, and I had autosave turned on, so I had this entire library of things that I could go past. So instead of losing my entire work, I just lost maybe 2 hours of work, which is not too bad. Another thing you're going to want to absolutely do also is make sure you're easy to contact. And what that I mean is obviously, have your website where all your work is there. Having a demo reel is it's a little bit hard when you're doing like video editing, because basically like the demo reel is kind of your video editing skills. But you definitely want to at the very least have a website where all your work is there, easy to find and easy to display for people. If you have a Twitter, have a nice clean Twitter. Where your email is on your bio. If you have a demo reel or like a tweet or like a pinned tweet with your website linked up there, like that also absolutely helps. Basically, just make yourself super easy to find. Don't make anyone work for trying to find you, because that's the most important part. Because that's when people just go, well, this is just too much work, and then you lost a client. More things to have in mind when you're actually editing. Learn your keyboard shortcuts, because you basically just want to, you want to learn this so that you're not wrestling the piece of software all the time. You just want to, you just want to try to get in the zone. So what I have is I basically made my own keyboard shortcuts. So I basically have it set up where I'm basically pretending I'm playing a first-person shooter. So a lot of my shortcuts are just set up to all the keys in one hand, and then I just have my mouse in my other hand. So like that just like speeds up everything so much. When it comes to videos, like if you're working on something and like you can only find like a low quality image of a press conference, that's fine. Just make sure your audio is always clean. That's like nobody tells you this, but like the most important part of a YouTube video is the audio. Like people can forgive bad video, but like if your audio is bad, people are gonna go away immediately. So make sure your audio is very clear. properly leveled, all the gains are properly leveled, and you have like nice crisp sounding music. But also make sure that your music is not overpowering your voiceover, because then it becomes really hard to hear. If you're editing a game trailer, keep in mind like pacing and the structure of video. Like always reference your outline if you feel like something's going off with the video. Try to talk to your client and always it's keep in mind like what your client is saying, but like also like trust in like your instincts of like how you're doing your pacing. Like I was saying before, like when you if you're working in Premiere and you have your sequence where you have everything laid out on your timeline. If you suddenly want to do like a big decision on it, like if you're suddenly having like a big stylistic change on it, make a duplicate of your sequence and just start working off that one. Because again, like if something goes wrong with it, you can go back to the other one. And something very important that people tell you is when you're editing a game trailer, always keep in mind the line of rights in action, which you hear a lot when you talk about movie trailers. And this is like the current variation made by Derek Liu, which is who's a very prolific indie game trailer editor. He's if you remember the trailer for Half-Life Alyx, he's the man that edited that trailer. And this is kind of like what it looks like right now. I'm gonna try to break it down real quick. The cold open is usually what you would see in a lot of social media. It's like basically a 5-second mini trailer at the start of your trailers. They can be super annoying, but they are incredibly effective because sometimes people are just scrolling through the social media. So that's the first thing they see like that really catches their attention. And then you have your acts 1, 2, and 3. Act 1 is a lot of setting up your scene, setting up what your game's about, trying to explain what's called the hook of the game. So if I were to talk about Tetris, the hook of the game is it's a puzzle game where you make lines and then the lines disappear. If I'm talking about A Hat in Time, the hook of A Hat in Time is collecting timepieces, and it's extremely cute, and you use all kinds of different hats. And then at Act 2, you start introducing more elements, kind of start building up the momentum of your video. Maybe the cuts get a little bit shorter. The action in it, it's a little bit more intense. And then at Act 3, all the same things apply, but like the cuts become even shorter, like there's more energy to it. The stakes start becoming more prominent of your video. And then at the very end of Act 3, around this line here, that's where usually that is the climax of your video, and then immediately after that, like the title of your game comes up, and then everything kind of winds down. And at the very end, there's a thing that Derek calls, it's called the button, which is usually like a little joke or a little gag that shows up in the video. And not every video needs it, but like it's a good thing to try to get people to remember what your video is about. So if this were a Borderlands trailer, for example, a button could be at the very end. They're like, oh, there's a cheeseburger gun. So like that's the thing like people will definitely remember out of your trailer. And usually then also like any kind of call to actions come up, which are things like available now or pre-order now, things like that. So. As a way to show this example, I want to show the trailer that I edited for A Hat in Time on the Switch. And then it also has overlaid on it the line of rights and actions. You can kind of keep track and see what I'm talking about.
Welcome to yet another day of space adventure.
Ever since you landed in Mafia Town, it's been raining with these magical hourglasses.
Down with the Mafia!
They fell in my forest, kid. They belong to me.
very lost kid with the hat. You're in the heart of our town.
I'll collect all the timepieces for myself! You have my word on it!
Okay, so. Okay. So yeah, so you can see there, like at the beginning of the trailer, everything is kind of laid out. Things start escalating. Usually, a good rule of thumb to have is whenever you're doing just a simple game trailer, keep it definitely around 90 seconds. If you go around 2 minutes, that's definitely fine. But anything over 2 minutes, it just gets old real quick. Okay, so one thing I want to say definitely about all these good practices is that most importantly, all of them are guidelines. Nothing of this is anything set in stone. Despite the fact that I have 5 years of experience as a professional editor, I am not an authority on it. Because the problem is also, like, if you follow all these guidelines way too strictly, all your trailers start looking the same. That's why, like, you'll hear people being like, oh, there's like this mini trailer at the beginning. Everything just says look the same. But like, keep in mind these guidelines, but also try to add your own flair to it, your own style, because at the very end of the day, that's going to be the reason why people want to work with you. That's the reason why people will look for you. Okay, and something really important I want to say. If you're a freelance video editor, usually you are working from home. And sometimes that means you will lose track of time. You will start forgetting to leave your house. So please take care of yourself. Get a good chair. Don't sit down on like a one of the chairs that you're sitting down right now. Don't sit down on that for like 8 hours a day. At the end of every hour, just stand up, stretch, walk around for a bit, go get a glass of water, go get Cheetos. Especially if you work from home, just go outside and get a little bit of fresh air, because there's been days where like I just start getting a really bad headache. I just start getting really dizzy, and I just drink some water, go outside, get some air, and I'm immediately feeling better. Don't forget to eat. Please don't forget. Like, I've done that a lot. Do not forget to eat, and please hydrate. Like, I love drinking soda as much as anyone else, but like water is really important to have. So just always keep a bottle of water with you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about networking. But first, I want to talk about what networking is not. So networking is absolutely not schmoozing, which, according to the dictionary, it means talking in a cozy or intimate manner to someone, typically in order to manipulate, flatter, or impress them, which, if you've seen that BoJack episode where I can't remember who dies. So they're at a funeral, and then Princess Carolyn starts schmoozing to everyone, which basically just means, it's a very inappropriate time to just be like, hey, can I get some work? So always be mindful of that stuff. Like, trading business cards is absolutely important. Like, always have a business card with at least your email and your website and a way to find your work. But it's not the only thing. It's like very at the bottom of things. Like, a business card is just a way for people to remember you, but you need to give them something to remember in the first place, not just the business card. It's also not getting someone to work for exposure, which means like, collaborations are fine. Like, there's animation collaborations, for example, and like, that's fine. That's usually a project for fun, but that stops being a project for fun the second someone starts profiting of it, and then everyone else is not. So make sure you're not working for exposure, and make sure you don't accept work for exposure. Just toss a coin to your Witcher. Okay, he's patron saint of the freelance economy, if I'm being honest. But just make sure you always, any work done is work paid. That's, at the end of the day, is you're trying to put food on the table. So what are some good ways to network? Basically things that you're doing right now. You go to conventions, you talk to people, you attend panels, you attend workshops, you just you try to join it. Like, Twitter is fine and all, but Twitter can be like 140. I don't know what the limit is now, but like 200 characters is not enough to make an impression. Like, try to join Discord servers where that you find like-minded people. Just talk to people. Like it's like get to know them. Just try to make friends. Which it's a very like, hey man, which is a very gray area to do. But just like everyone's here to have fun. Everyone's here everyone's here is like in the same playing field. So like. Try to help each other out in that way. It's just cool to make friends. Like I've made a lot of wonderful friends through that, and then through all those friends that I've made, like suddenly someone will be like, "Hey, like I heard from your friend that you're looking for work," and like that's how I've gotten a lot of my work. So it's a way to like get your name out, but like you get your name out through goodwill and not just like I'm just trying to get work here and I'm gonna use anyone here to try to get work. Besides the thing, like the best networking you can do is not. It's when you don't talk about networking. Like you don't just go, "Hi, I like doing editing. Do you need an editor?" Just try to get to know someone, and then and making friends. That's what these kind of conventions are really all about. And now we get to the fun part, talking about taxes and financing all your business. So there's no magical way of just saying like how much should I charge for my work. That's really what it comes down to is you gotta take into consideration where you live. You gotta estimate your rent, your utilities, any kind of software license, anything that you need to do work, which also includes food because you need to eat and you need insurance also to be able to be alive. All that stuff is just cost. So that's why there's no magical number. Like if you live in California, all these costs are going to be like 3 times what they are living in like North Carolina. I don't know how it works, but like I live in upstate New York, which it's the cost of living there is highly different than New York City. So keep in mind that when you're trying to come up with both your hourly rates and your flat rates. And you want to estimate also how many hours you're going to be working in the week. You will usually want to try to aim for 40 hours, but what I'm saying with this is you're not going to be spending 40 hours editing because part of your business is also doing your taxes, make sure all your hardware and software is up to date, capturing footage, trying to contact people. All of that is part of your work. So you gotta keep in mind that like your work is not just editing, is doing all this other stuff to keep your business afloat. Which includes talking with clients, capturing, organizing all your footage, archiving that stuff. Any kind of hour that's worked is an hour that you should be getting paid. What else? Taxes. We're talking about taxes now. Woo! Hell yeah. So bad news. As a freelancer, your rates are going to be higher. That's just a fact because when you work for a full-time company for someone else, they usually take care of all your insurance. Usually they take care of your insurance and any kind of they take money out of your paycheck for taxes, and that's why when tax season comes up, sometimes you'll see a refund. When you're doing freelance, you very rarely see a refund. But the good news about it is that almost everything that you're using is a deductible. So that new computer part that you bought, the Adobe licenses that you're paying for. Did you use your copy of Mario Maker 2 to make a DidYouKnowGaming? That's a deductible now. It's definitely like a very great line that you can use to your favor in that way. For example, I work from a bedroom, so technically my bedroom is my office. So I can deduct part of my rent. I can deduct my phone bill because I need that to be able to contact people. I can deduct my internet, my power, all that fun stuff. So that'll definitely help you. I use tax software like TurboTax to do. I know people that like to talk to an accountant, but that's not something that everyone has available. So TurboTax is usually the way to go because taxes in America at least are absolute hell. I cry every time I have to do them. So there's something I want to share. Like I know that I was trying to keep this panel mainly to be like freelancing, as an aside I wanted to do is this entire PowerPoint, I'm going to have it on my Twitter after the panel. So I'm going to have a link. So that I should have probably mentioned that at the beginning. I'm going to have a link. I'm going to have a link on my Twitter, like right after this, like probably about 10 minutes after. I'll post a link, and then I'm going to have a PDF with all the slides. So all these links, all this information, you're gonna be able to see it there. If you're getting into any game trailers, you definitely want to follow Derek Liu's work. He's one of the reasons why I've been able to do game trailers that I actually don't hate. And you know, just work that I'm actually like be able to be proud of, and that's something you want to be able to do too. So Derek Liu does wonderful work. There's a video by Mark Brown from Game Maker's Toolkit that's called "How to Make an Indie Game Trailer." It covers like a good amount of the things that Derek talks about, but it really helps a lot. You always want to have a library of stock media, so I like to go to Pixabay, which is all absolutely free and royalty free, which you can use. For your shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts layout that I did, I got it from Freddie Wong from Rocket Jump, and he has this video where like he kind of explains the same thing, where like you kind of are playing a first-person shooter with your keyboard shortcuts. You always also want to try to build like an audio, like sound effects library, because if you're cutting just even trailers for yourself, just always having a library of different sound effects is always useful. So this is a link for like an Adobe library that's absolutely free that they have provided, and there's like a plethora of sounds there. The same thing with like a lot of these things also come from Derek Liu, who he has like all kinds of resources which come from like any kind of like specs for your trailer, like how to export different bit rates when working on trailers that go up on channels for Sony, for Nintendo, for Xbox, because everyone has a different encoding output. And also, if you want to cut your own like movie trailers, there's also resources here for that. And what they do is you find trailers for that have different audio channels, and then what you can do with them is you can take out, you can go to Premiere and then you can take out all the music and sound effects, and then you just left with the voiceover, and then you can add your own music, you can add your own sound effects, and that's incredible practice to be able to do your own movie trailers, and eventually you can put those in your portfolio and your demo reel, because those are like incredible practice, because then you're just showing the most important part, which is all your editing skills. And then I also want to highlight, like I said before, like you make a lot of friends here, and it's important to be able to look out for one another. So here's a bunch of other lovely editors that are my friends and that I work with. Lulu posts a lot of. You've probably seen a lot of her shit posting online, and she works with McMuscles. She works with VG27. She's wonderful. The cartoon gamer Malik, he works with me on DidYouKnowGaming. He's also absolutely amazing. Jason Rufy works also with McMuscles. He's absolutely great. Same with Nikolai Bolton. Caleb has worked with me on Frederator, and he has also worked with Crunchyroll. Raven just started also doing work with Matt McMuscles, and then finally Zach. Zach's just great, and he also does like absolutely. He has done work for Mother's Basement, and all just wonderful people. Oh wow, got enough time for the last part. Got a Q&A part now, like I said. So if you have any kind of questions that you want to ask me about any part of my work, any part of like any tips for just for editing and all. I don't know if that mic over there is working, but just feel free to come up here, and then I'll give you this mic to ask any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, why don't you come up here?
Here. Nope. No, that one don't work. Okay. So I did a little bit of video editing in like some college classes, and I found that the artistic aspect of like putting these things together and they look good is like more intuitive. When it comes to the crazy technical crap like codecs and bit rates and types of audio, do you have to have like a really in-depth knowledge of that to get started? And is there a good resource or a good way to learn more about that technical nitty-gritty?
Yes, thanks for the question. It's at first when I started doing it, there was a lot of kind of trial and error, but usually like YouTube has a very specific outline that you can follow. it varies on like what kind of video you're doing. So like if you're doing 1080p videos, there's a specific bit rate, which is usually around 10 to 12 if you're doing 30 frames per second. But usually every single website that has any kind of video hosting has an outline that you can follow. Like they'll tell you, okay, so here's the bit rates that we put out our videos, because usually the bit rate for like a movie DVD is usually about 50 megabits per second, and you're not going to be able to find that on YouTube because that's just too high of a bit rate, and the only internet connection fast enough to be able to do that usually be something like a Google Fiber kind of deal. So that's something, if you're doing like a game trailer for someone, that's something that they'll want to be able to give you. For example, like I put Derek Liu's stuff up there. He has an entire page on his website that's just game trailer specifications. So they'll be able to tell you if you're doing a trailer for Nintendo, and if it's going on their channel, they'll tell you encode at 10,000 megabits per second. Sorry, that's too high. At 10 megabits per second. For YouTube, if the trailer is going off for YouTube, you're gonna want to encode a separate one that's about 7 or 5 megabits per second, and you want to encode at 30 frames per second. Because the point of those is, if you go into the eShop, people usually there don't care about like a high bit rate for a video. They just want to be able to watch the video as fast as I can. So like being able to min-max that kind of stuff is absolutely important. So yeah, did I answer the question? Okay, yes.
Thanks. Yeah. Hi. So my question, I have a 10-year-old nephew, which is why I'm here right now. He's getting into the whole YouTube channel thing, and he is excited about playing games and streaming them or editing them later to put on his channel. Do you have a good suggestion for like how he can play them while he's recording and then edit them later? Like what kind of what he should go through to do that, like software-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm getting it right, your question was how he would be able to record everything that he's doing, and then just being able to like edit it very quickly. Yes. Okay. So for example, what I would do, if I were, for example, just playing for my PlayStation, I would have the Elgato card, which is usually it's like this little black box. Sorry, what? Yeah. Okay. So you want to buy like this Elgato card, which is like a little black box that you just plug to the PlayStation, and then you just plug it into your computer, and then you'll be able to record this in there. I believe the PlayStation, the PlayStation, for example, has a function where you can just straight up record into your console. Okay. That one definitely has one too. Like you can definitely like set a manual record in your Xbox to be able to record the footage from there. And then if you hook up a USB to it, you can just copy the file there and then copy the file to the computer. Sorry, what? Okay, I did not know that part, huh? Okay, so if you're playing on your console, you definitely want to get just the Elgato capture card, which is just a little black box that kind of parses the video from the console to your computer. It comes with like another piece of software, so all you do is install this program on your computer. You just hit record on it, and then all the footage is just recorded automatically into your computer from it. Yeah, no problem. No, you're absolutely good. This is exactly what we're here for. If you are on, if he's playing something on PC, just get OBS, which is the easiest software to do. You can definitely find tutorials to how to set up OBS on YouTube. So if you just look up how to set up OBS for game capture, you'll find a video very, very quickly and very easy.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about the long-winded explanation. Okay, yes.
Okay. So my twofold. First off, I just want to recommend for audio editing, Affinity. I recently switched, and it's like $50 flat, and I really enjoy it. So there's that. But my question is, how often do you have to do advanced graphics like After Effects or animations?
So that's actually an excellent question that didn't touch. It's actually very important. I'll just say before I answer your question, I'll say like if you really want to get ahead in video editing, pick up After Effects, which is like a motion graphics piece of software. And the best website to be able to do this, I forgot to put it here, but it's just called schoolofmotion.com. They have a lot of workshops that you pay for. They're $900, but they have like an entire session that's absolutely free. And they'll teach you very simple things like kinetic typography, but they can go into more complex stuff like just character animation and visual effects and motion graphics. For example, in the Hat in Time video, when Hat Kid goes through the train window and the window breaks, there was something weird going on with the camera that made the fridge look kind of weird. So what I did is I went into After Effects and I made this effect of glass breaking, and then I superimposed it into the cut. So as soon as Hat Kid hits the window, I just cut to basically a completely different piece of footage, but the glass is there to like mask it and like really help sell the hit and the action. So I guess my question is, definitely pick up After Effects and Cinema 4D, which I think it's also like standard for visual effects and motion graphics. But go also to schoolofmotion.com, and if you just find, I think it's called like 30 days of motion graphics, and they just have little exercises for like every day you just do a thing. So like it'll start really simple. So like day one would just be let's get to know After Effects, and then day two will just be let's just make a square move from left to right. So stuff to like be able to help you to do that. I've recommended this website to friends who have reached out to me and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then they ended up working with Riot. So I vouch for this website a lot, and like this kind of visual effects work is really, really important to do. Like you don't have to do anything fancy. Just if you can just pick up little things like that, it'll really help your work a lot, and it'll really help it stand out. Okay, you had your hand before, and then you back there. But yes, what's your question?
Regarding capturing, how long does it take you to make a 2-minute video?
A 2-minute video? It varies a lot because if I'm just doing, for example, let's say if it's like a 2-minute DidYouKnowGaming, it's going to be vastly different than a 2-minute game trailer that you just saw. This one with all the video, all the capture, the editing, the talking with clients. I want to say that was about 50, 60 work hours, which if you spread around a whole week can be, like we should spread around like a 40-hour week, it can be somewhere between a week and a half to 2 weeks. So something like that, definitely. Like always, like it's important to like keep in mind, like it can all vary because like I did like the takeover trailer as well, and that one took me a little bit less time. That one took me about 30 hours. But it's definitely what? For DidYouKnowGaming, usually like that one has like a more simple format. So after I do a lot of planning and like layout and prep work, like editing 1 minute of runtime takes me about an hour, sometimes even less. So if I'm doing, for example, a 10-minute DidYouKnowGaming, that can take me, with all the extra prep work and planning, somewhere around 16 to 20 hours. So it's definitely something important to keep in mind, like because it's also important when like if you're talking to a client, they're like, well, I just need you to edit 2 minutes of video, nothing less. Like, it's just very little. And then, they ask you suddenly to do motion graphics. And like, that's so much work. It's like somebody just comes to you and is like, can you do just 2 minutes of 2D animation? It's not too much work. It's a lot of work. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep in, like the scope of your project is something that you absolutely want to keep in mind. And when you're talking to your clients at first, it's definitely something you want to bring up because that'll help you get an estimate of how many work hours you're gonna be doing on it. So yeah, you got a question back there?
Yeah, so I primarily work in feature films and commercials as an editor. I've been doing so for about 10 years now. But YouTube is a completely different ballgame. So what do YouTubers kind of find in a reel? Because like, presenting like a narrative reel and YouTube videos would seem sort of off kilter. So what do you find that if a YouTuber says, hey, like send me a reel, what do you find like piques an interest typically?
So if I get your question correct, the basic way you're saying is how to build like a demo reel or a portfolio that's directed at YouTube people?
Yes.
Okay, great. So usually the way they do it is, because a lot of YouTubers, what they do, they do a lot of like essay videos or like I want to say listicles, which is usually like what I call like videos like my top 10 games or like things like that. You definitely just want to show, that you can capture nice looking footage. You can show, if you can show like your abilities with any kind of like video manipulation, which usually means, using like a photo mode or being able to show how good are you with editing audio. Like I was saying before, like something that will really help your work with YouTube was if you know motion graphics. Even if it's just a little bit like, typography stuff, like that'll absolutely help you humongously. So what I've seen people do for their demo reels is, I've gotten most of my work through Twitter. So what I've seen people do is they just have like a little minute-long video, and the video just says like, hey, my name is Nick. I like to do motion graphics. I've worked with these people, and I can do color correction, which is a very important skill that I recommend everyone having. To do color correction, audio mixing, being able to capture footage, preferably like high quality, like 1080p, 60 FPS at the very least. And that's the stuff that really is able to like resonate with people in YouTube. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so what time is it? Okay, I got like, well, I have about 10 minutes. Okay, so I guess in order to wrap up the panel, what I want to say is, like I said, it can be a lot of like time investment on it, but just know that you can absolutely do it. Like you don't, I don't want to say you don't have to go to college, but like don't go into debt for it. Like you can absolutely, there's a lot of like beautiful resources that you can find online. Like again, like all the resources that I've shared here are going to be available on my Twitter right after this. If you haven't written down it, you can come up here and I'll give you some business cards that have all my contact information. You can get the presentation from. But it's definitely like I self-taught myself all this. Like I just went into YouTube and I looked up tutorials. It's one thing like I kind of first did it because I had to put food on the table, but eventually like it was something I started liking more, and was able to eventually make a career out of it. And I've gotten a lot of great and wonderful opportunities, but this is also something that I have to like a lot of friends to thank for. Like don't forget the people around you because they can be really important. Don't treat them as stepping stones. Because they're all there to support you, and just be sure to be able to support them back. Always try to improve your craft, and just know that there's always going to be room for growth. Like I have a lot of growth to do still, but that's why you go through like all these other resources. When the panel is over, I'll be right out here if anybody wants to ask any more questions or just wants a business card. But I guess that's it, and I like baby Yoshis if anyone didn't notice. But yeah, thank you for coming.